Sometimes I think I'm saying the words in my head, and then I realize I said them out loud. But I still don't care. So please be advised. Hey y'all, I'm Jenn. I'm from Oakland, and I'm an androgynous, black lesbian feminist and a lover of all black people.
This is Daren. I'm an asexual novelist, researcher, and bona fide comic book fanatic from the whitest part of Southern California.
Orange County. We're queer millennials with 3 kids and nearly 20 years of marriage.
This is a podcast about the realities of blackness, adulting, and relationships.
This is That Black Couple. Hello, it's season 6, episode 7. Are you ready?
I am ready to go.
Okay, so this is season 6, episode 7 of That Black Couple, and today we are talking about, is rest really resistance?
Is it?
Is it?
Is it?
I don't know.
Let's find out.
Grab your water, grab your kombucha, clean out your gut, and take care of yourself. Have a seat. This is That Black Couple. I'm Jenn.
I'm Daren.
Before we get started, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at That BLK Couple, on Facebook at That Black Couple, and look us up on the internets at www.thatblackcouple.com. You can also email us at thatblkcouple@gmail.com.
And you already know you can find us everywhere podcasts are streamed. So that means your good old Pandora, it means SoundCloud, it means Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere.
You put way too much on Pandora.
You know, you notice that usually I leave them to last. I wanted to put them in the number 1 spot today.
You give Pandora way too much credit.
You know, they got staying power. The fact that Pandora still exists.
She's not that cute.
Give her flowers.
She's not that cute.
Pandora got us through back in the day.
She's not that cute.
You know what? You know what? Just because of that, I'm going to fire up my Pandora account today.
Anyway, are you ready to get started?
You know I'm ready.
All right, let's get to segment 1. First things first. Now, I will admit that this episode was spawned by me because I was on Instagram and I have someone I follow named What's One More Pothos, because what a great question. What is one more pothos? There are so many variants of pothos plants. Do y'all have pothos? You got a pothos, Daren?
I don't have a pothos.
You live in a house with 100 plants. You have at least one pothos. You bought me another pothos.
I might have bought them for you.
There's like 90 pothos in this house. What is one more pothos? Anyway, that's not the point of this. Okay, so there was a conversation about whether or not rest is resistance. And I like what he said because he was asking if, when we think about resistance and rest, if those two things really agree, right? Mm-hmm. If we think about rest as the absence of activity, as the absence of doing the thing, it does make it kind of confusing to think of it as resistance. So obviously we know that Dr. Tricia Hersey wrote the book, Rest is Resistance. It's a phenomenal book. It's a New York Times bestseller. And one of the primary arguments of the book is that rest indeed is resistance because it pushes back and disrupts these capitalistic systems of production that are seeking to extract labor from us, that are absolutely anti-Black and white supremacist in orientation, right? All of these conversations are real and true. I wanted us to talk about whether or not rest was resistance today from the perspective of folks who write about power and who write about politics, right? Doctors Kathy Cohen, Robin D.G. Kelly, folks who have been thinking about resistance in a political sense for a very long time. Because I do think that when we say rest is resistance, we don't do enough to start thinking in depth about what that rest looks like and what that resistance looks like. I think when people hear rest is resistance in a sentence, they think, oh, I need to go home and go to sleep and stop giving my labor away. And that is a really good starting point. Right?
Yes.
But I think after that, we have to start digging into what is rest, what is it comprised of, and what do we need to rest? And what is resistance? What does it mean for us to really intentionally resist?
And I'll say for me, right, you know, when I hear rest, I think sleep.
Right.
And I know we did an episode on sleep for Black folks.
Yeah.
Ooh, I think it was like 5 years ago. So I'll definitely pull that up.
That was 5 years?
Yeah, it was 5 years ago.
Gosh.
And we still talking about sleep.
Still talking about sleep. And we still not getting enough sleep.
Still not getting enough. But even, you know, thinking about that episode and thinking about, you know, this topic, you know, sleep is important. Mm-hmm. It's very, very important. But I really do. I will say this: when that book came out, Rest is Resistance, I was kind of like, okay, I see it.
I think a lot of people were,
but also like, okay, because we do feel like resistance needs to be something active. It needs to be like an actual force.
Sure.
And yes, I do, and we'll get into this in more detail, obviously. And I do believe that resting in and of itself is a way of, not giving the oppressor what the oppressor wants. Right. But I do have questions about is that really active resistance? Is it actually pushing back against it, or is it a tool that you can use to do the act of resistance?
Or is it all the above?
Is it, check all that apply? I don't know.
Right. And we're going to find out.
Yeah.
This podcast is supported by generous donations from our patrons and listeners. Become a supporter today by heading to www.patreon.com/colorcombosmedia.
You can stream the show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. When you listen, please consider hitting that heart button, sharing, giving us a 5-star rating, and leaving some dope comments. This helps us with our page rankings and gets more listeners for the show. Thank you so much.
We're back.
We are back.
Guess what time it is?
It's time for the conversation.
My favorite.
I know, because you're a nerd.
I know.
At some point, we have to make sure we talk about X-Men 97 on one of these podcasts.
Oh.
Can we talk about that?
Oh, my soul.
Where does that go? Which episode would that go on?
It deserves its
Let's
own.
put a tech in that.
Yeah, that needs to happen.
Let's make sure that happens soon.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, let's do the conversation. We're talking about rest. Is it resistance?
That's right.
And you know me. Let's get some facts.
I'm ready.
Let's put facts into the chat.
Okay.
And I got a lot of them.
Facts have entered the chat.
So strap in.
Okay.
So according to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, all adults need 7 hours of sleep every night. Right. So when we think about, as a baseline, how much sleep we're supposed to be getting, 7 hours is really supposed to be it. But in a national survey of more than 400,000 Americans that the CDC did, this was published in 2020, 34.8% of all adults revealed that they were not getting enough sleep. Results further show that 43.5% of Black people basically had trouble sleeping, compared to 30.7% of white respondents. Okay, so let's put it all together. So everyone's supposed to be getting about 7 hours of sleep every night. Over 30% of people are not. And then when you take into account that about 43.5% of Black people are having trouble sleeping, that means of that 34.8% of people that are not getting enough sleep, Black people are going to be overrepresented in that number.
Got it.
Let's keep that in mind. Now, looking at some other studies, we see that Black, Hispanic, and Chinese participants have had shorter what's called actigraphy measured sleep duration and a higher prevalence of short sleep than whites, which basically just means the quality of the sleep is not as good. Black, Latino, and Chinese participants were more likely to report poor sleep quality than whites. Black men, the group with the lowest sleep duration, slept on average 82 minutes less per night than white women.
Gosh, okay.
Black men had a shorter average sleep duration, but rated their sleep quality higher than Black women. So let's go back through that one again, because that one, to me, I think is the most interesting thing in all of this, is to say that Black men, number one, have the lowest sleep duration.
Mm-hmm.
Black men out of everybody are sleeping the least.
Yeah.
And it's a whole 82 minutes less than white women.
That's a lot. It's about an hour and a half.
That's a lot of sleep to miss out on average. And remember, an average is an average. So there's people that are way beyond that number, to keep that in mind. Also then, comparing Black men with Black women, even though Black men might be sleeping longer, Black women have poorer quality of sleep.
Right.
Which to me makes sense, right? Because I feel like, as we've talked about, I feel like ad nauseum on this podcast, a lot of Black women are just dealing with a lot of times they're bearing the weight of everyone in their community.
Yeah.
Which would naturally lead to poor quality of sleep.
This reminds me of Arlene Geronimus's theory about weathering, the weathering hypothesis, and the ways that Black women age from the inside out. These unseen processes of aging that we always say Black don't crack because it's not cracking on the outside, it's cracking on the inside.
On the inside. And that seems to be how it goes. I mean, this is one of those things I could keep spitting out statistic after statistic if we wanted, but like the NHIS found that Black women had a 52% higher prevalence of short sleep duration compared to white women again. So it's one of those things where when you do these comparisons, you just see that sleep is a big deal.
Yeah.
And to me, it's one of those silent things that we don't think about, right? Because we're not sitting around looking at other people's sleep and really digesting and understanding how much they sleep and what their quality of sleep looks like. But the numbers don't lie.
Right. And this is why this episode to me is really important, because sleep and rest are not the same thing.
Not.
People think that if Black women just go home and lay down, and they go to sleep, then they're going to be resting. But what this shows is that even as Black women, Black men are trying to sleep, they're not getting the same amount of rest that other races of folk are getting, because they have to still manage the burden of anti-Blackness, white supremacy, misogynoir, disparate treatment for disabilities, and violence of Western medicine, inaccessibility to free education, to free healthcare, inaccessibility to basic necessities like a grocery store down the street or mental health services. Like, these things make it so that what we conceive of as rest is also contingent upon the socialization and the life circumstances that people face every day.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, how many times have you gone to sleep because you were just exhausted?
Most of my sleep is exhaustion.
Right? How many times have you gone to sleep and when you woke up,
you're still tired?
You were still tired, or you were in pain. How many times have you? I know this is a big one for me. Like, I woke up tense, like my jaw was tight.
Yeah,
you know,
or your
like,
neck hurts, or your shoulders hurt.
That's not restful sleep.
This is something I really noticed for Mother's Day when y'all were like, "Hey, sit down and don't do anything for a whole day." And then I went to sleep and I woke up and I was like refreshed. I was like, "This is different. What is this?" Because I had spent an entire day resting. I was awake. I was sitting on the couch, watching TV, hanging out with my kids, taking some little notes, reading a book, playing chess, not doing anything extremely stressful. I wasn't on social media. And then I went to sleep and there wasn't a lot on my mind. And I actually got really good sleep. That felt like rest.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I remember when you went through that, you're like, whoa. Is this what rest feels like?
Right.
And we should not be that alienated and that far away, that unacquainted with what rest is.
Right.
That is something that we should have a close relationship with. We should know what that's like. That's something we should be getting on the daily.
I agree.
Especially when you think about the fact that, as these stats point out, other people are.
They absolutely are. Other people meaning white folk.
Yeah.
So what I want to introduce into the conversation is the political kind of theory side of this. I want to pull up a quote from Dr. Kathy Cohen in her article called Deviance as Resistance. This article was published in 2004 in the Du Bois Review. Again, it's called Deviance as Resistance, a new research agenda for the study of Black politics. So what this article is really about is, Dr. Cohen is theorizing about what it means to both study Black politics, but also queer politics. And it's a critique of the field. But what's really important about this piece is also thinking about what deviance means and what resistance means. So we're not just focusing on the part of the sentence, the rest. We're also focusing on this idea of resistance. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it stood out so much for me when I thought about What's Another Pathos, the video about whether or not rest is resistance. So first, let me give you some background. Dr. Cohen talks about this idea of folks being deviant. Deviance just means to differentiate yourself or be differentiated from a normative center, a nuclear center. So for most marginalized people, vulnerable people, minoritized people, we are considered deviants. If you are Black, if you are queer, if you are trans, if you are disabled, if you are an immigrant, if you are previously incarcerated, right? There are so many ways that people are identified as deviants. And one of the things that she says is that these so-called deviants have chosen and acted differently, situating their lives in direct contrast to dominant normalized understandings of family, desire, and sex. It is these instances of deviant practice resulting from the limited agency of those most marginal in Black communities that are at the heart of this work. And the part that I want to fixate on here is this idea of limited agency, right? And so one of the things that's really important about this article and some of the work of Robin D.G. Kelley is thinking about deviance and resistance as not being synonyms, right? So because deviance and resistance are not synonyms, it means that something like resistance takes intention, right? Deviance doesn't. Deviance is something that kind of happens to us. We are identified as deviants. We are identified as a deviant because we are seen as outside of a normative ideal, right? Non-white deviates from whiteness, whiteness being seen as the norm. Women deviate from maleness, maleness being seen as the norm, right? So to be deviant is simply to exist in our skin. Mm-hmm. So this really also gets at this idea of the personal being political. Am I inherently political because I exist in this body? And people like Kathy Cohen and Robin D.G. Kelley would say, no, you're not political because you exist in this body.
Right.
And I would think that they might say rest is not inherently resistance unless you have some intention around that. And that's what I think I saw when I sat there that day, and I had to intentionally not engage in these systems. I had to intentionally not get distracted by the world. I had to remove myself from social media. I had to remove myself from these circles and these spaces that might be harmful to me so that I could intentionally get rest. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, for Black folk, for queer folk, trans folk, for brown folk, for disabled folk, right, it's very hard we can't turn the world off, right? And so I like the book Rest as Resistance, Rest is Resistance, because I think that what it is trying to do is be aware of those systems, right? Aware of capitalistic production in the ways that our bodies are being extracted from. And give us some tools, right, to remove our bodies from those systems. And I think that's great. But I don't think a lot of people get past the title.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I feel like in this society now, it's all about clickbait, and it's all about what can I get in 2 seconds.
Right.
And people read Rest is Resistance and they think, cool,
I'm
gonna lay
that.
down.
I can do that.
And it's deeper.
It's much, much deeper than that. And I think that if folks are not engaging with the institutions that they are complicit in, right? If you go to work every single day and you work for the government, or you're in the military, or you work in academia, or you are a police officer, right? If you go for 8 hours to 10 hours of your day every single day participating in empire, and then you come home and like, I'm going to get some rest, you are not going to sit here and pretend like you're not bringing that empire home with you. Mm-hmm. That empire is in your DNA. That empire is in your body. How are you releasing it, right? How are you holding it and yourself accountable to communities that are most affected, right? I think that that's the part of the conversation that I've been missing with people, because they go, oh, rest is resistance. I'm going home so I can rest. But then I'm looking at you and I'm like, girl, but you was just sitting over here complicit in misogyny, talking shit about another Black woman. Right? So how do we understand that rest also isn't a selfish act? It's not something that is just about us doing work in isolation. We also have to be accountable to community. That's what the book is actually about. When people actually read the book, is a lot in there. You got to actually read it, right? Yeah. But people are so excited about this idea of, ooh, I can resist by resting, right? People want this shortcut to being an activist, to being an organizer, to being someone who's doing something, that they don't actually want to open books and read them and then take tools and do the self work, because that takes a lot of responsibility. That takes a lot of self accountability. That takes a lot of introspection, and a lot of folks are not. They're not up to do that work.
No, they're not. They're not up to it, and they're not really putting the effort in to get to the place where they would be up to it, right? Like, a lot of people really just, like we just said, they'll read that and they'll say, that's the takeaway, and then they'll think that's all of the work that they need to do.
Right.
But they're not, as you said, they're not reading the book. They're not seeking help and support from their community. They're not really going outside of themselves, as you noted, to really better themselves. It's this concept of people thinking that they know best, that they can cherry pick something that they saw on the internet, a title that they read on a book, something that someone said in passing, and they can kind of patchwork together
right
what their best self is going to be.
Right.
And that's just not how it works.
No.
Some things, even in this internet age where everything is so fast and we have access to so many things, some things still just take the work. Sometimes it takes the research, it takes the trial and error. It takes all of that work to see the actual real change.
Right. And you have to keep going. It's a continual process. So I think, in the reflection, I think I want us to offer some steps that, because honestly, we'll be good at it for a while. We'll be good at both rest and resistance, and rest as resistance. And then we'll fall off, right? Like, and I try not to feel guilty about it. But I think, as we've discussed here, rest is not something that we experience in permanence, and resistance is also not something we experience in permanence. So what does it look like for us to practice it every single day?
Yeah.
You can find my mom and dad, aka That Black Couple, on the web at thatblackcouple.com. That Black Couple is owned and operated by Color Combos Media. If you would like to help fund our content, sign up at www.patreon.com/colorcombosmedia. Please consider giving us $5 or $10 per month to help us build our platform and grow our organization. You can also give one-time donations at www.paypal.me/colorcombosmedia. All donations are welcome.
All right, we're back.
We are back.
All right, so we're in the reflection, and I think that we should talk about some tools that actually make rest resistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first, I think people talk about rest and they think it means laying down and doing nothing. But as a highly anxious, neurodivergent person, for me, laying down doesn't do shit.
Laying down is work.
Laying down is work. Because if I don't do the work that I need to do to turn my brain off and to get myself to stop worrying and being anxious, I'll just be laying down stressed about the things that I'm not doing.
Right.
So I know a lot of people say that meditation doesn't work for them. But for me, a type of meditation has been like, what things help my brain to relax and escape? And for me, it's like watching horror movies. I will watch 7 zillion horror movies, and sometimes there'll be horror movies I've seen like 20 times. And I read about this, and I learned that for people with high anxiety, we like to sometimes listen to the same songs, watch the same movies, because it gives us a sense of certainty. Mm-hmm. We know what's coming. We can predict it. It makes us feel safe. So I think rest in that context really means what makes you feel safe, not doing the things that typically motivate you to be hyperactive, to be overproductive, and to be pushed by that capitalistic thing in the back of your head that's saying you're not doing enough.
100%.
And I think that, those tools might not be traditional. It might not be meditation. Right? Because I know I'm looking at you right now. There was a period when you would meditate and you would fall straight asleep.
Well, and that honestly, in that vein, that I would say that was showing that meditation was working, because it was putting my mind at rest, and it was showing how exhausted I was.
Exhausted you were,
so
right?
Once my mind turned off, I was out.
Exactly, but also you always pass out, and that's really bad.
Yes,
you are always exhausted.
Yes.
So what are the ways that we can prevent ourselves from complete exhaustion before we get to that place where we just lay down and pass out? Like, I know for me, I have to take rest days. I have to take days where I'm like, I am not going to open my laptop, and I am not going to go and schedule 4,000 meetings. Actually, I'm going to go get a massage, and I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm going to go sit in some grass. I'm going to touch plants today. I'm going to go have brunch with my friend. I have to purposely tell myself I am not going to do the things that make me feel like a machine today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm absolutely going to not be a machine today. I'm going to do whimsical things. I'm going to wear a flower crown. I'm going to blow some bubbles. I might go find a horse to pet. I'm going to touch all the dogs I see today. Like, these things require intention. Like, you have to remove yourself from the environments and the context and the people and the relationships that are extractive. And you have to intentionally go into spaces that do the exact opposite. Like, what is restorative? For me, it might be the nail shop. It might be getting a massage. But for other people, it might be yoga. It might be going to the gym. For other people, it might be going to an art class or a wheel throwing class or a music class. Like, there are other spaces I think that people, need to engage in that are not the spaces that make us into machinery.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that sometimes can also be routines. I'm not going to sit here and act like I have the best of routines.
We be trying.
I'll be trying. But I think routines are a good way to set some limitations in your brain and to turn off certain things in your brain, right? If you say, I'm done working for the day, and so when I'm done working for the day, I turn my computer off, I close the office door, I, put on some lounge pants and some slippers or whatever it is. Like, if you have a regular routine that you can institute, it kind of physically tells your body and your brain, we are now transitioning into a different state and we're leaving those things behind.
I agree.
Same thing of like when people always say you should have a sleep routine, right? The whole point of that is to say, let's give my body some physical stimuli to say, we are now going into sleep phase. We're going to calm down. We're going to stretch. We're going to wash our face. Whatever routine works for you that allows you to slow things down, to bring the energy down, to get yourself into a state where you're ready to enter into rest. That is always a good practice to have.
I agree. And I think, part of what goes along with this is that rest might not always look like rest. Like, for some people, rest is very active. Like, sometimes I'm like, I need to go on a walk because my brain needs to get away from whatever it is that I'm doing. I need a break from it. And so rest might mean I'm resting from that thing I'm doing by taking a walk, right? Yep. So my physical body is not really at rest, but my mind is. And I think that I just want people to really be more intentional and thoughtful about what type of rest that they need and how they're going to get it. Like, you might need sleep. How are you going to get good sleep? Right? How are you going to eat the right things? How are you going to make sure that you got healthy legumes? And, like when you said we need to start eating more nuts again, I was like, you're right. Let me carry some almonds in my bag.
Yep.
Right? Like, these are things like putting the right fuel in your body. And listen, do drugs.
Do them.
Do drugs. Like, everybody know I might be on a meeting and you're going to see me with a joint in my hand. It's legal. I'm going to do it. And I have a medical marijuana license. So I'm dually going to do it. Don't catch me in California. I'm not going to be sober at all. Right?
Not in D.C.
Not in D.C. Don't catch me in D.C. They know me in the dispensaries. I got favorite dispensaries in New York, D.C., and L.A. and Chicago now. Anyway, I digress. But, like microdosing, right? There are things that we can do to intentionally give our minds rest. Sometimes our bodies need rest. Sometimes our minds need rest. Sometimes our emotions need rest. Sometimes rest might mean, hey, I have this person in my life and they are emotionally draining. And right now, I don't have the capacity to show up in this connection with them in the way that they need. So let me take a break.
Step away. I know for me, a big one is like video games.
Yeah.
Like a video game is really good as long as you don't let it take over.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to step away, to leave the current state of reality that we're in. And, you turn into Mario, you turn into someone shooting people, you turn into, a bird alien. Or an alien. Yeah, whatever it is. You go into a different world where your normal day-to-day challenges and stresses are not there.
Right.
And it's a nice way to take a break.
Right.
And then you come back to it, hopefully refreshed and renewed and energized.
Right. And we're not talking about escapism, right? Escapism doesn't necessarily renew you in the same ways because escapism is not a process of working through. Like escapism is like ignoring the thing and acting like it doesn't exist, and then you pop back in it and you're like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm in the same place I was already, right? This is about intention. So although video games might be it and a horror movie might be it to give your mind a break, it means that when you come back, you're still ready to face the challenges and the potential obstacles of the things that you have to work through, but now you're able to do it with fresh eyes. Right? And especially if it's something where you've been exhausted and fatigued for an extended period of time, now you've got the tools and hopefully the strength and the energy to push through it. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, or you just want to tell us how great we are, email us at thatblkcouple@gmail.com. Bye.